name is Orville Reed, 32 years old, and I never thought I would hear my own parents try to sacrifice me on a hospital bed. The accident left me fighting for my life, barely conscious but able to hear every word. Mom whispered to the doctor, "Can we swap his organ to save my son instead? He is useless anyway." Dad nodded, adding, "He is just a burden." They had no idea I could hear them, and they definitely had no idea what I would do next. Before I tell you this story, drop a comment telling me where you are watching from. Hit that like button and subscribe if you want to hear how I turned the tables on the people who were supposed to protect me. Growing up in Portland, Oregon, our family looked perfect from the outside. 2 parents, 3 kids, a dog named Rusty, and a white picket fence that Dad repainted every spring. But behind closed doors, the truth was different. I was the middle child, sandwiched between my younger brother Wesley and my older sister Amanda. From the earliest days I can remember, it was clear who the favorite was. Mom and Dad, Margaret and Richard Reed, never tried to hide their preference for Wesley. He was their miracle baby, born after they thought they couldn't have more children. Wesley had Dad's athletic build and Mom's charismatic smile. He could charm anyone within minutes of meeting them. Meanwhile, I was the awkward, bookish kid who preferred computers to football. When Wesley was 10, Dad bought him a brand new baseball glove that cost $200. That same year, I asked for a chemistry set for my birthday. "Do you know how expensive those are?" Mom said, handing me a set of used encyclopedias from a garage sale instead. I pretended to be excited, but I saw the price tag they forgot to remove, $5. For Wesley's first baseball game, my parents took the day off work, invited the grandparents, and brought a professional camera to record every moment. When I won the regional science fair that same year, neither of them showed up. "We had to take Wesley to his pitching lesson," was their excuse. The school principal drove me home. College was where the favoritism became impossible to ignore. My parents established a college fund for Wesley when he was born. By the time he turned 18, they had saved enough to send him to an Ivy League school with no loans needed. For me, the conversation was different. "Orville, you know we believe in working hard for what you want," Dad said when I brought up college applications. "Student loans build character." I ended up working 2 jobs through community college before transferring to a state university, graduating with honors and $30,000 in debt. The only person who ever made me feel valued was my grandmother, Martha. Mom's mother lived 3 hours away, but she would drive to Portland twice a month just to see me. She came to every science fair, debate, competition, and graduation. "Your mind is special, Orville," she would tell me. "Don't let anyone dim your light." When Grandma Martha died 7 years ago, I was 25. She left me a modest inheritance of $50,000. My parents were furious. "She should have split it evenly," Mom said at the reading of the will. Wesley, who had barely visited Grandma, nodded in agreement. What they didn't know was that Grandma Martha had seen through their favoritism years ago. I used that inheritance to start my tech consulting business. I rented a small office space, bought necessary equipment, and hired my first employee within 6 months. The business grew steadily, focusing on cybersecurity for small businesses. Nothing flashy, but stable and profitable. My parents never asked about it. At family gatherings, the conversation always revolved around Wesley's law career. After moving out, I limited contact with my family to obligatory holiday gatherings. Last Christmas was particularly uncomfortable. Wesley had just been hired by a prestigious law firm, and my parents couldn't stop talking about it. "My son, the lawyer," Dad kept saying to anyone who would listen. He never mentioned that he had another son sitting right there at the table. "He's working on cases with millions of dollars at stake," Mom added, beaming with pride. Meanwhile, my business had just secured a contract with a regional bank, but when I tried to mention it, Dad changed the subject back to Wesley. Amanda, my older sister, had moved to Chicago years ago. She called occasionally but rarely visited. "It's too toxic," she told me once. "I can't watch them worship the ground Wesley walks on while treating you like you're invisible." I didn't blame her for keeping her distance. Sometimes I wished I had done the same. Despite everything, I still hoped that someday my parents would see me, really see me, that they would recognize my accomplishments and be proud of the man I had become. Little did I know, it would take a near-death experience to show me exactly how they felt about me, and what they revealed would shatter any illusion I still had about our family. The night everything changed started like any other Tuesday. I was working late at my office, finishing a security implementation for a major client. Their system had vulnerabilities that needed patching before they processed their quarterly financial data. It was nearly midnight when I finally shut down my computer. The rain had started around 10, and by the time I left, it was pouring. The roads glistened under streetlights, visibility reduced to just a few yards ahead. I drove cautiously, both hands on the wheel, wipers working at maximum speed. I remember checking my rearview mirror and seeing headlights approaching too fast. A delivery truck, I would later learn, with a driver who had been on the road for 14 hours straight. He fell asleep at the wheel, just as I was navigating a curve. The sound came first, a blaring horn that seemed to fill the entire world. Then the impact. The truck slammed into my car from behind, sending me spinning across the wet pavement. My car flipped once, twice, before smashing into the guardrail. Glass shattered around me. The airbag deployed with explosive force. Then everything went dark. I woke up to the rhythmic beeping of hospital monitors. White ceiling, antiseptic smell, tubes running from my arms, pain everywhere. A nurse noticed my eyes flutter open and rushed over. "Try not to move, Mr. Reed. You're in the intensive care unit at Portland Memorial. You've been in a serious accident." The doctor came in shortly after, a tall woman with kind eyes and a serious expression. Dr. Kimberly Chen, according to her name tag. She explained my injuries with clinical precision. 4 broken ribs, punctured lung, lacerated liver, kidney damage, concussion, and internal bleeding that required emergency surgery. "You're lucky to be alive," she said. "The next 48 hours will be critical." I drifted in and out of consciousness after that. Sometimes I would wake to nurses checking my vitals or adjusting my medication. Other times, I could hear conversations but couldn't open my eyes or respond. It was during one of these semi-conscious states that my parents arrived. "Oh my God, look at him," Mom gasped. Her voice sounded genuinely distressed, which surprised me. I hadn't heard concern like that directed at me in years. "Will he make it?" Dad asked the doctor. Again, I detected real worry, and a flicker of hope sparked in my chest. Maybe this trauma would bring us closer. Maybe now they would see me. Through the fog of medication and pain, I heard Dr. Chen explaining my condition. "The internal injuries are severe, but we've managed to stabilize him. The liver and kidney damage are our main concerns right now." Then another doctor entered the room, speaking in hushed tones with Dr. Chen. I caught fragments of their conversation, something about another patient needing urgent care. My parents were asked to step outside briefly, and I fell back into unconsciousness. When I next became aware, I realized the situation had drastically changed. My parents were back, but now they were discussing Wesley. Apparently, he had been admitted to the same hospital just hours after me, though for entirely different reasons. "Liver failure," the new doctor was saying, Dr. Ramirez, as he introduced himself. "Your younger son's condition appears to be the result of prolonged alcohol abuse." "That's impossible," Mom protested. "Wesley hardly drinks. He's focused on his career." Dr. Ramirez's voice remained professional but firm. "The tests are conclusive, Mrs. Reed. Your son's liver shows signs of years of heavy drinking. He's managed to hide it well, but the organ is now failing rapidly. He needs a transplant soon." The silence that followed was heavy with shock. Then Dad cleared his throat. "What about compatibility? Could a family member donate?" That's when the conversation took a turn I never could have imagined. "We would need to run tests," Dr. Ramirez explained. "Siblings often have the highest compatibility." "What about Orville?" Mom asked, her voice suddenly animated. "Could he be a donor?" "Not in his current condition," Dr. Chen interjected. "He's critically injured and needs all his organ function to recover." "But if he was compatible," Dad pressed, "theoretically, could his liver save Wesley?" Dr. Chen's response was measured. "Mr. Reed, your son Orville is fighting for his life right now. His organs are damaged. He's not a candidate for donation. But if he was compatible and healthy enough," Mom persisted, "the donation could happen?" I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the hospital's air conditioning. Were they really asking what I thought they were asking? "That would be something to discuss, only if Orville stabilizes, and only if he consents," Dr. Chen said firmly. "Right now, both your sons need intensive care." Throughout my stay, one nurse in particular, Patricia, showed me genuine care. She would talk to me even when I was unconscious, explaining what medications she was administering, or simply providing updates about the weather outside. "It stopped raining," she'd say. "There's a beautiful sunset tonight, Orville. You'll see it yourself soon." Patricia made me feel like a person, not just a patient. She adjusted my pillows when I was uncomfortable and advocated for pain management when she noticed my discomfort. The contrast between her genuine concern and what would come next from my parents couldn't have been starker. As my condition stabilized slightly, I remained in a state where I could hear everything but appeared unresponsive. The doctors had explained to my parents that I might be aware of my surroundings even if I couldn't communicate. But apparently, they didn't take that warning seriously enough. On the third day after the accident, I heard my parents enter my room. Their footsteps were cautious, and they spoke in hushed tones. I kept my eyes closed, still too weak to maintain consciousness for long periods, but my hearing was perfect. "Dr. Chen, we need to speak with you privately," Mom said. The doctor must have entered with them. "Of course, Mrs. Reed. What can I help you with?" Dr. Chen's voice was professional as always. "It's about both our sons," Dad began. "We've been thinking about the situation, and we wanted to ask about something difficult." There was a pause, and I could almost feel the tension in the air. "Wesley's condition is deteriorating rapidly," Mom continued. "The transplant list is long, and the doctors say he might not have enough time to wait." "I understand how difficult this is," Dr. Chen replied, "but as I explained, we're doing everything we can for both your sons." Dad cleared his throat. "That's what we wanted to discuss. We've been thinking about Orville's situation and, well, his prognosis. His condition is serious but stabilizing," Dr. Chen said. "We're cautiously optimistic. But he's still critical, right?" Mom pressed. "His recovery isn't guaranteed?" "No recovery is ever guaranteed, Mrs. Reed. But we have every reason to believe." Mom cut her off. "What we're asking is this. Can we swap his organ to save my son instead?" The silence that followed was deafening. I felt as if all the air had been sucked from the room. Surely I had misheard. My own mother couldn't have said those words. "I'm sorry?" Dr. Chen's voice was sharp with disbelief. "Orville's liver," Dad clarified, his voice lower but perfectly audible to me. "Could it be transplanted to Wesley if Orville doesn't make it? Or even if he might not need his full liver to survive? He's useless anyway," Mom added, and the words struck me like physical blows. "He's never amounted to much, but Wesley has such a promising future." "He's just a burden," Dad agreed. "Always has been. Wesley is the one with real potential." I wanted to scream, to sit up and confront them, but my body was betraying me just as thoroughly as my parents were. I remained motionless, a silent witness to my own dismissal from their lives. Dr. Chen's response was glacial. "Mr. and Mrs. Reed, what you're suggesting is not only medically inappropriate given Orville's condition, but it's ethically reprehensible. Both your sons are my patients. Both deserve the full extent of our care." "You don't understand," Mom insisted. "Wesley could do so much with his life. He's a lawyer with connections. He could help so many people. Orville just fixes computers." "He would want to help his brother," Dad added. "He's always been jealous of Wesley's success. This would give his life meaning." Every word was another knife twisting in my chest. The pain of my physical injuries paled in comparison to what I was feeling now. My entire childhood flashed before my eyes. Every moment of neglect, every dismissal, every time I was made to feel less than. And now they were literally weighing the value of my life against Wesley's. My heart rate must have spiked, because the monitor beside me started beeping more rapidly. Nurse Patricia hurried in. "Is everything all right? His vitals are elevating." "We were just having a private discussion," Mom said quickly, her tone completely transformed. She moved to my bedside and took my hand. "Orville, sweetie, if you can hear us, we're here for you. Mom and Dad are right here." The sudden shift in her demeanor was sickening. Dad joined in, placing a hand on my shoulder. "Stay strong, son. We're pulling for you." Through barely parted eyelids, I could see Nurse Patricia looking between my parents and Dr. Chen, her expression suspicious. "Doctor?" Chen's face was a professional mask, but her eyes were cold as she observed my parents' performance. "I think that's enough excitement for now," Patricia said firmly. "He needs rest." After they left, I heard Dr. Chen and Patricia speaking quietly near the door. "Did you hear what they were asking?" Patricia whispered, outrage evident in her voice. "Unfortunately, yes," Dr. Chen replied. "Make a note in his chart. No medical decisions are to be made by the parents without consulting the ethics committee. And Patricia, keep an eye on them when they visit." Later that evening, my parents returned. I continued to feign unconsciousness, desperate to know just how far they would go. "Do you think he heard us earlier?" Dad whispered. "He's heavily medicated," Mom replied dismissively. "And even if he did, We can just say he misunderstood. The medications made him confused. The doctor was no help, Dad muttered. But there must be something we can do. Wesley doesn't have much time. We'll figure something out, Mom said. We always do. Wesley is going to be fine. And if Orville doesn't make it? Dad's voice had a calculated quality that chilled me. Then at least something good could come from it, Mom answered. His liver could save Wesley. They discussed me as if I was already gone, as if my death would be a convenient solution to their problem. The parents who should have protected me were plotting how my demise might benefit their favorite child. I had never felt so alone, so betrayed. But beneath the hurt, something else was building. Anger, resolve, a determination not to let them win. I might have been physically helpless in that moment, but my mind was clearing, and I was beginning to form a plan. That night was the darkest of my life. Alone with my thoughts, I processed what I had heard. The medication made it difficult to focus, but the words kept repeating in my head. He's useless anyway, just a burden. The casual cruelty of it struck me anew each time. I thought back to every childhood birthday when Wesley got the expensive gifts, while I received practical items. The time I graduated with honors and Dad merely glanced at my diploma before asking when Wesley's baseball game started. The countless family photos where I was positioned at the edge, easy to crop out. What I had interpreted as mere favoritism was something far more sinister. They didn't just love Wesley more, they saw no value in me at all. I was expendable, a spare part for their golden child. Around midnight, Nurse Patricia came to check my vitals. She must have noticed tears leaking from my closed eyes because she gently wiped them away. I know you can hear me, Orville, she said quietly. I want you to know that what your parents suggested today was wrong, deeply wrong, and Dr. Chen and I won't let it happen. I managed to open my eyes slightly. Patricia looked surprised, then relieved. Can you understand me? She asked. I gave the smallest nod. Good. Don't try to speak yet. Your breathing tube was removed only yesterday. She checked that the door was closed before continuing. I need you to know that you're not the first patient I've seen this happen to. Family dynamics can turn ugly when medical crises hit. She adjusted my IV and continued. Once, I had a patient whose wife tried to terminate his life support to collect insurance money. Another whose siblings wanted to harvest organs for a cousin. People can become monsters when desperation sets in. Her frankness was oddly comforting. She wasn't sugarcoating the situation or pretending it wasn't as bad as it seemed. Your recovery is your priority now, Patricia said firmly, and my job is to support that recovery. Not your parents' wishes, not your brother's needs, yours. The next morning, my business partner Michael visited. We had started the company together, and though I was the majority owner, Michael ran operations when I was unavailable. Seeing his familiar face was like a lifeline thrown into dark waters. Jesus, Orville, you look like hell, were his first words. Typical Michael. No filter. I managed a weak smile. My voice was a raspy whisper, but I could speak now. Need your help. Michael leaned closer. Name it. Parents trying something bad. I whispered. Need lawyer. To his credit, Michael didn't ask for details. He just nodded. Sarah Thompson? Your corporate attorney? I nodded. Consider it done. She'll be here today. True to his word, Sarah arrived that afternoon, professional in a tailored suit, her tablet ready for notes. Michael had briefed her that there was an urgent situation, but she needed details from me. I need to record this, she said, placing her phone on the bedside table. Can you tell me what's happening? With frequent pauses to gather my strength, I explained what I had overheard. Sarah's expression remained neutral, but her knuckles whitened around her pen. This is very serious, Orville, she said when I finished. They have no legal right to make these decisions for you as long as you're capable of making them yourself. But if you were to become incapacitated, they'd try to take over, I finished. Exactly. We need to file medical power of attorney paperwork immediately, naming someone you trust to make decisions if you cannot, not your parents. Michael, I said without hesitation. Michael looked startled, but nodded firmly. Of course. Next, Sarah continued, we need to secure your business assets. If you're out of commission for a while, there could be attempts to access company funds, especially if your parents know you're successful. They don't, I said bitterly. Never cared enough to ask. Nevertheless, we should take precautions. I'll prepare documents transferring temporary operational control to Michael, with strict limitations. As Sarah and Michael worked on legal protections, Patricia brought me information about organ donation ethics and patient rights. Knowledge is power, she said as she left printouts on my bedside table. Later that day, I received an unexpected visitor. Amanda, my sister, stood awkwardly in the doorway, looking exactly as she had the last time I saw her 3 years ago at Christmas. "Orville," she said, her voice catching. I came as soon as I heard. I motioned for her to come closer, conserving my limited energy. "Mom called me about Wesley," she explained, taking the chair beside my bed. "Mentioned you were also in the hospital, like it was an afterthought. I called the hospital directly to find out what happened to you. Typical. Even in emergency phone calls, I was an afterthought." "How bad is it?" Amanda asked. "Been better," I managed. "Heard them. Talking to doctor." "About what?" I hesitated, unsure if I should burden her with this knowledge. But Amanda had always seen through our parents' favoritism. She deserved the truth. "They want my organs." "For Wesley." Amanda's face drained of color. "What? That's not possible. Even they wouldn't." "Heard them," I insisted. "Called me. Useless. Burden." Amanda put her hand over her mouth, tears filling her eyes. "I always knew they favored him, but this is monstrous." Having Amanda believe me without question was validating in a way I hadn't expected. For years, I had wondered if I was overreacting to the favoritism, if I was being too sensitive. Now, faced with the ultimate confirmation of my dispensability in their eyes, Amanda's immediate acceptance of my experience felt like the first real support I'd had from family since Grandma Martha. "I'm staying," she declared, "taking a leave from work. You're not facing this alone." With Amanda, Michael, Sarah, and Patricia forming an impromptu support team, I began to feel less helpless. We developed a strategy: document everything, secure legal protections, and prepare for the confrontation that would inevitably come when my parents realized I knew what they had said. Michael brought my laptop so I could check on critical client projects. "The Westbrook Bank implementation is fine," he assured me. "I told them you had a medical emergency, and they extended the deadline. They specifically asked that you handle the final security protocols when you're better, said they trust your work." That small vote of confidence from a client meant more than any praise my parents had ever given me. People valued my work, my expertise. I wasn't useless. I wasn't a burden. I was a professional with skills that mattered. As my physical strength slowly returned, so did my determination. Whatever happened next, I would face it on my terms, not theirs. A week after the accident, Dr. Chen deemed me stable enough to have my case discussed openly. My voice was stronger, and though pain still radiated through my body with every movement, I was alert and clear-headed. The time had come. I asked Patricia to ensure Dr. Chen would be present during my parents' next visit. Sarah had prepared all the necessary legal documents, and Michael and Amanda positioned themselves as support. We were ready. My parents arrived at 2 in the afternoon, their expressions shifting from concern to relief when they saw me sitting up slightly in bed. "Orville, you're looking better," Mom said, approaching to pat my hand. Her touch made my skin crawl. "The doctor says you're improving faster than expected," Dad added with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. I wondered if he was disappointed that my recovery might complicate their plans for Wesley. Dr. Chen entered, followed by Patricia. "Mr. and Mrs. Reed, good to see you. Orville has requested this meeting." My parents looked confused. "Meeting?" Mom asked. "What kind of meeting?" I took a deep breath. The moment of truth had arrived. "I heard you," I said, my voice raspy but clear. "Heard what, sweetie?" Mom's fake concern was nauseating. 3 days ago, with Dr. Chen, you asked if they could swap my organ to save your son instead. The color drained from both their faces. Dad recovered first, forcing a laugh. "You must have been dreaming, Orville. The medications can cause very vivid dreams. You said I was useless anyway," I continued, looking directly at my mother. "And you," I turned to my father, "said I was just a burden." "That's ridiculous," Mom sputtered. "We would never say such things. You're confused from the trauma and medication." I glanced at Michael, who nodded and pulled out his phone. He pressed play on a recording. "He's useless anyway," came my mother's voice, crystal clear. "He's never amounted to much, but Wesley has such a promising future. He's just a burden. Always has been. Wesley is the one with real potential." The recording continued, capturing their entire conversation with Dr. Chen. My parents stood frozen, their deception exposed in their own voices. "Where did you get that?" Dad demanded, his face flushing with anger. "Does it matter?" I asked. "Those are your voices, your words." "We were desperate," Mom said, switching tactics. Tears filled her eyes. "Wesley is dying. You have to understand, we weren't thinking clearly." "I understand perfectly," I replied. "You've made your feelings clear my entire life. This just confirms what I always suspected. I was never really your son. I was Wesley's backup plan." Dr. Chen stepped forward. "Mr. and Mrs. Reed, as medical professionals, we were deeply disturbed by your request. It violated every ethical principle we uphold. You don't understand what it's like to watch your child dying," Dad said, his voice rising. "You'd do anything, say anything." "I have 2 patients in this hospital," Dr. Chen replied evenly. "Both are my responsibility. Both deserve care and respect." "And what about family responsibility?" Mom demanded, turning to me. "Blood is thicker than water, Orville. Wesley is your brother." "The full quote is, 'The blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb,'" Amanda said, entering the room. "It means chosen relationships are stronger than family ties." "Hello, Mom. Dad." My parents looked stunned at Amanda's appearance. "What are you doing here?" Mom asked. "Supporting my brother," Amanda replied, "the one you're willing to sacrifice." The door opened again, and a nurse wheeled Wesley into the room. He looked terrible, his skin jaundiced, his body thin, but his eyes widened when he saw me. "Orville, what happened to you?" His voice was weak. "Car accident," I replied shortly. "Heard you're not doing well either." Wesley nodded miserably. "Liver shot. Too much partying in law school and after." He glanced at our parents. "They don't know the half of it." "Actually, they do," I said. "And they've been trying to convince the doctors to use my organs to save you." Wesley's mouth fell open. "What? That's insane. They can't do that." At least he seemed genuinely shocked, which was somewhat comforting. My brother might be entitled and self-destructive, but perhaps he wasn't actively participating in my parents' scheme. "Wesley, don't listen to him," Mom said quickly. "He's confused from his medications." I nodded to Michael, who played the recording again. Wesley's face crumpled as he heard our parents' words. "You said that?" he whispered. "About Orville?" Dad stepped toward Wesley. "You have to understand, son. We were desperate. We still are. You need a transplant or you'll die." "So you thought sacrificing your other son was the solution?" Wesley looked horrified. "What kind of people are you?" Despite everything, a small part of me was gratified by Wesley's reaction. He might have accepted their favoritism his entire life, but even he had limits. "We thought Orville would want to help you," Mom insisted. "By dying?" I asked coldly. "Not dying, necessarily," Dad said, his tone becoming calculating. "A partial liver donation. People do it all the time." "Which would be my choice to make," I said firmly, "not yours. And after what you've revealed about how you see me, why would I choose to help?" "Because he's your brother," Mom cried. "Are you really so selfish that you'd let him die?" The question hung in the air, heavy with manipulation. Classic Mom, turning her monstrous behavior into my moral failing. Dad took a step toward me, his face darkening. "After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us? By turning your back on family? Everything you've done for me?" I laughed, though it hurt my ribs. "Like what? Neglecting me my entire life? Favoring Wesley at every turn? Calling me useless and a burden?" Dad's face contorted with rage. "You ungrateful little." He lunged toward my bed, but Michael intercepted him, pushing him back. "That's enough. Security to room 412, Patricia called into the hallway phone. "This isn't over," Dad spat, as 2 security guards appeared at the door. "Wesley needs that transplant, and that will be between Wesley and the transplant team," Dr. Chen said firmly. "Mr. and Mrs. Reed, I'm going to have to ask you to leave now. You can't keep us from our sons," Mom protested. "Actually," I said, "I'm formally requesting that you be banned from my hospital room." "Sarah?" My lawyer stepped forward, handing papers to Dr. Chen. "These documents indicate that Orville's parents are not to be given any information about his condition and are not permitted to visit him. Additionally, Michael Harris now holds medical power of attorney for Orville should he become incapacitated." As security escorted my parents out, I felt a complex mix of emotions: vindication, grief, exhaustion, and surprisingly, relief. The mask had finally fallen completely. There was no more pretending, no more hoping they might someday see my worth. It was strangely liberating, even amid the pain. Wesley remained, looking shell-shocked. "Orville," I had no idea they felt that way about you. Really? I asked skeptically. You never noticed how differently they treated us? He had the grace to look ashamed. I knew they favored me, but I don't know what I thought. I never imagined they'd go this far. Well, now you know, I said, too tired to soften the blow. You should go back to your room. You don't look well. As the nurse wheeled him out, Wesley turned back. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. And I would never ask you for part of your liver. Never. After everyone left, I sank back against my pillows, emotionally drained but strangely peaceful. The truth was out. The worst had happened. And somehow, I was still here, still fighting, surrounded by people who genuinely cared about my welfare. It wasn't the family I was born into, but perhaps it was the family I needed. The day after the confrontation, Sarah brought disturbing news. Your parents tried to file for emergency medical power of attorney over you while you were unconscious, she explained, showing me the paperwork. Fortunately, the hospital's legal department flagged it due to Dr. Chen's notes about their behavior. What else? I asked, sensing there was more. Sarah hesitated. There were attempts to access your business accounts. 3 withdrawal attempts from your business line of credit, using your personal information. Michael confirmed this. They tried to transfer $50,000. The bank blocked it because it didn't match your usual transaction patterns. The depths of their betrayal seemed bottomless. Not content with sacrificing my body, they had tried to drain my business as well. What had they planned to use the money for? Wesley's medical bills? Their own expenses? It hardly mattered now. Dr. Jefferson, a liver specialist, visited later that day to discuss my recovery. Your liver was lacerated in the accident, but not catastrophically damaged, she explained. The human liver has remarkable regenerative capabilities. With proper care, we expect yours to heal completely within a few months. And my kidneys? I asked. Also improving. You're young, and were in good health before the accident. That makes a significant difference in recovery outcomes. Her assessment was cautiously optimistic, a rare bright spot in the darkness of the past week. That evening, Amanda and I had our first real conversation in years. Sitting beside my bed, she spoke candidly about our shared childhood experiences. I left because I couldn't stand watching how they treated you, she admitted. But leaving meant abandoning you to face it alone, and I've felt guilty about that for years. You had to save yourself, I said. I understand that now more than I did then. She reached into her bag and pulled out a worn envelope. I found this when clearing out my apartment before coming here. It's from Grandma Martha, given to me before she died. She asked me to open it if there was ever a family crisis. Inside was a letter written in our grandmother's familiar handwriting. Amanda read it aloud. My dear grandchildren, if you're reading this, something has happened that's forced family truths into the open. I've watched for years as Margaret and Richard blatantly favored Wesley while neglecting Orville's gifts and Amanda's sensitivity. This was never about you or your worth. Some parents, like my daughter, carry wounds that make them incapable of loving equally. This doesn't diminish your value, it diminishes them. I've left my modest savings to Orville not to create division, but because I saw in him a quiet strength that needs nurturing. Amanda, you've always been able to stand up for yourself. Wesley has had every advantage, but Orville has had to fight for every scrap of recognition. My hope is that my small gift will show him that someone sees his true worth. Remember that family is more than blood. It's who stands by you when the storm comes. Love each other, even when it's difficult. And know that I have loved each of you completely, without reservation or condition. By the time Amanda finished reading, we were both in tears. Grandma Martha had seen everything, understood everything, and tried in her way to balance the scales. Her words felt like a benediction from beyond the grave, affirming what I had always hoped: someone had truly seen me. Meanwhile, Michael had brought news that lifted my spirits considerably. Westbrook Bank called again. They said, and I quote, "We'll wait for Orville no matter how long it takes. They value your expertise that much." This validation of my professional worth stood in stark contrast to my parents' dismissal. In the business world I had built for myself, people respected my contributions. I mattered. As I continued to recover physically, another development arose. Wesley's condition was deteriorating rapidly. He needed a transplant within weeks, possibly days. My parents returned to the hospital, this time approaching the situation differently. They requested a meeting, which I reluctantly granted, with Amanda, Michael, and Sarah present for support. "We've come to apologize," Mom began, her voice subdued. What we said was unforgivable. We were desperate and frightened, but that's no excuse. Wesley is dying, Dad said bluntly. The doctors give him less than a month without a transplant. He's moved up the list, but there's no guarantee an organ will become available in time. I'm sorry to hear that, I replied honestly. Despite everything, I didn't want Wesley to die. But I don't see what this has to do with me. My liver is still healing. We're not asking for your liver, Mom said quickly. We're just asking for your forgiveness, and perhaps your understanding. Dad looked uncomfortable but continued. We've never been honest about Wesley's problems. The drinking started in college. Then came gambling. He's lost everything, including his position at the law firm. This was news to me. I thought he was a rising star attorney. That's what we told everyone, Mom admitted. The truth is, he was fired 6 months ago for showing up drunk to court. He's been living with us, promising to get help but never following through. The golden child's shine was tarnished after all. I felt no satisfaction in this revelation, only sadness for the waste of potential and the years of deception. We put everything into Wesley, Dad continued. Refinanced our house to pay his gambling debts, covered his rent when he couldn't, made excuses to family and friends. And I was the afterthought, I said quietly. Yes, Mom admitted, surprising me with her candor. We focused so completely on saving Wesley that we failed to see what was right in front of us, a son who never needed saving, who saved himself. It wasn't quite an acknowledgement of my worth, but it was the closest they had ever come. Dr. Jefferson visited again the next day with unexpected news. We've run compatibility tests, and you're a potential match for your brother's liver transplant. I thought my liver was damaged, I said. It is, but it's healing well. A partial donation might be possible in a few weeks, once you've recovered further. But I want to be absolutely clear. This would be entirely your choice. Given what's happened, no one would blame you for refusing. The ethical dilemma weighed heavily on me. Wesley needed a liver. I potentially could provide part of mine, once I recovered sufficiently. But after everything that had happened, did I want to? The hospital arranged for me to speak with an ethics consultant, Dr. Rivera, who helped me work through my thoughts without judgment. There's no right answer here, she told me. Organ donation is a gift, never an obligation, especially in circumstances like these. I spent days considering my options, talking with Amanda, Michael, and even Patricia. The decision would ultimately reflect the kind of person I wanted to be, regardless of how my family had treated me. 3 weeks after the accident, I was discharged from the hospital. My recovery would continue at home, with regular checkups and physical therapy. Wesley remained hospitalized, his condition managed, but deteriorating. I requested a private conversation with him, wheeled into his room by a nurse. Seeing him up close, the extent of his illness was shocking. His skin was yellow, his body gaunt, his eyes dull. This was no longer the golden boy who had overshadowed me my entire life. This was just a sick man facing his mortality. The doctors say you're a match, Wesley said, his voice weak. But I want you to know I'm not asking for it. After what Mom and Dad did, I wouldn't blame you if you never spoke to any of us again. I've been thinking about it, I said carefully. And I have some conditions. Wesley looked up, a flicker of hope crossing his face. What conditions? First, if I do this, it's not for Mom and Dad. It's because Grandma Martha would want me to show compassion, even when it's difficult. Wesley nodded. Second, you need to commit to rehabilitation. Real rehab, not just promises. Alcohol counseling, gambling addiction treatment, the works. I will, Wesley said. I've hit rock bottom, Orville. I can't keep living like this. Third, Mom and Dad need to acknowledge, publicly to the family, how they've treated me all these years. No more pretending we had a normal relationship. This condition was harder for Wesley to accept. They're so proud, he began. Their pride isn't my problem. I cut him off. If they want me to consider helping you, they need to face the truth of what they've done. Surprisingly, my parents agreed to all conditions. In a family meeting that included aunts, uncles, and cousins via video call, they confessed to years of favoritism and their recent appalling behavior at the hospital. The stunned silence from our relatives spoke volumes about how successfully they had maintained their perfect family facade all these years. The partial liver donation procedure was scheduled for a month later, after my doctors confirmed I had recovered enough to withstand the surgery. The operation was lengthy but successful. Wesley received the portion of liver he needed, and my remaining liver would regenerate over time. Recovery was painful, but I had support. Amanda took time off work to help care for me. Michael managed the business brilliantly, bringing me updates but insisting I focus on healing. Patricia visited on her days off, our friendship evolving into something deeper. Wesley kept his word about rehabilitation, checking into a facility immediately after recovering from the transplant surgery. His path wouldn't be easy, but for the first time, he was facing his demons honestly. My relationship with my parents remained complicated. The damage done over a lifetime, culminating in those terrible words in the hospital, couldn't be erased with a simple apology. We established boundaries, limited contact, no unsupervised visits, no financial entanglements of any kind. 6 months after the accident, I had a follow-up appointment with Dr. Jefferson. "Your liver has regenerated beautifully," she confirmed. "Medically speaking, you've made a full recovery." Wesley, too, was doing well physically, though his emotional recovery was ongoing. The rehab program had helped him understand the roots of his self-destructive behavior, including how our parents' excessive attention had created its own kind of pressure. With Amanda's help, I purchased a house across town, a fresh start in a place unmarked by painful memories. Patricia, now officially my girlfriend, helped me decorate. "A new home for a new chapter," she said as we arranged furniture in the living room. During my recovery, I had connected online with others who had experienced family betrayal. These conversations led to the formation of a support group that met monthly in my new home. Sharing our stories became a form of healing for all of us, a reminder that family wounds, while deep, need not be definitive. My final conversation with my parents took place at a neutral location, a quiet coffee shop halfway between our homes. They had made some progress, attending family therapy and beginning to recognize the damage their behavior had caused. It wasn't enough to rebuild what had been broken, but it was a start. "We failed you," Mom admitted, her usual defensiveness absent. "I don't expect forgiveness, but I want you to know I see it now. We got lost in trying to save Wesley," Dad added. "So lost that we couldn't see we were destroying our relationship with you." I nodded, accepting their words without offering absolution. "I donated part of my liver because it was the right thing to do, not to earn your approval. I don't need that anymore." As I settled into my new home, built my relationship with Patricia, and watched my business continue to thrive, I reflected on everything that had happened. The accident had nearly killed me, but it had also freed me from the desperate hope for parental approval that had shadowed my life. I learned that my value was never determined by their assessment of me. The organs in my body are mine, just as my life is mine. Sometimes the family you choose matters more than the family you're born into. The scars on my body have healed stronger than before, and so has my spirit. What would you have done in my situation? Would you have donated your organ to save someone whose family tried to sacrifice you? Drop a comment below with your thoughts, and don't forget to like and subscribe if this story touched you. Share it with someone who needs to be reminded of their worth, regardless of how others have treated them. Thank you for listening, and remember, your value is inherent, not assigned by others. Your life is yours alone. Live it on your own terms.